Good evening, everybody, and welcome to another edition of Fire Up Michigan. My name is Scott Morganroth, appropriately named the Motor City Madmouth. Glad to have you with us tonight. Hope you had a really wonderful weekend, and we're glad to have Taylor Phillips back. Welcome back, Taylor. Appreciate you being on.
Yeah, great to be back. Fortunately, Ed Smith does physical therapy. He'll try to be on my own podcast tomorrow night at some point.
Okay. Well, hopefully he's getting some stuff done that'll make him a whole lot better. But glad to have you on here, Taylor.
At
So,
least he's recovering. At least he's recovering from bronchitis. I know that.
okay. Well, that's good. Hey, listen, I can appreciate the value of a good partnership. George Eichhorn and I know that we've been doing it a long time too. So I completely get it. Welcome back, George.
Good to be here, Scott. Thanks for having me.
You're welcome. And Jeremy's going to have a doubleheader tonight after we get done with Fire Up Michigan. We're going to go out there and do it in Wisconsin, aren't we, Jeremy?
Yes, sir.
All right. Well,
I'm traveling tonight.
yeah, you are across I-94 anyways, and I'll be heading to Wisconsin later in the week.
Drive safely.
I'm flying from Florida.
Of
So,
course.
yeah, I don't care to disclose those reasons, but I'll be up there by Friday night. Nevertheless, here's what our show looks like. We're talking about the Michigan Panthers, the Lions, Dylan Larkin, Bojan Bogdanovic. I'm really good at these. Bally Sport.
Bojan Bogdanovic.
Yeah, right. I'm sure you're better at the pronunciation than I am. And Scottie Montomery, the most recent Lions news. So hope you can stay with us for the entire broadcast. I know it'll be very insightful. We're going to just talk briefly about the United States Football League. On Thursday's edition of Fire Up Michigan, we talked about Jeff Fisher being the coach. What do you know? Jeff Fisher decides to step down. Enter in Mikenolan. George, any thoughts about the Mikenolan hire by the Panthers?
Well, first of all, it was a little bit of a surprise. I know that they weren't totally probably happy with Fisher's performance last year. Obviously, the Panthers had a very bad season down in Birmingham. But, Jeff was a good coach, but I don't know. I think that the change will probably do good because Nolan's got a good track record. He had a good coaching career in the NFL. And, I just look at it like I assume they know what they're doing, okay? I'm not close to the situation there where they haven't really called a press conference here in Detroit to introduce Mike, which I'm surprised, but maybe they will closer to training camp when it starts down here at they're going to train at Eastern Michigan University at Rynearson Stadium in Ypsilanti. But all that being said, Mike Nolan's a good choice. I like it.
What about you, Jeremy?
I think it's a great choice. Jeff Fisher, I said as soon as we got him for the Michigan Panthers, I said if we get hit 500 year one, it'll be lucky, especially with this quarterback picks in that draft.
Okay. Well, Will Vogel, thank you very much for tuning in tonight. Will Vogel, I agree. Nolan has been around the NFL for some time. Of course, Dick Nolan, his father was a coach for a lot of years. All right, let's go on to, I'm going to turn over to Taylor Phillips. Okay, I want you to give me some more information about the possible return of Megatron to the Lions. What do you got there, Taylor?
Well, all I have is they've been just in talks about. Well, they've been in increasing positive talks about him just returning. That's all I have.
Okay.
Would you like to see it happen, Taylor?
Yeah, would you?
I would. Yeah, I would. It's it's something Barry Sanders uh, has actually never done. He's too old to return now, but I respect Barry Sanders. I still like him. I like Calvin Johnson too. Megatron. It's kind of a different feeling.
Okay, well, it's always good that a lot of the old Lions are able to be involved with the team in some way, shape, or form, right, Jeremy?
Yes, absolutely. With the Calvin Johnson thing, what it was is he finally received a letter from Goodell last year prior to the season telling him why Sheila just couldn't give him that bonus money back. And it's because it's in the CBA that if the owner does that, then all of that becomes immediate dead cap. Whatever bonus structure was left behind becomes dead cap. So he has to do something in a retirement basis with the team to get that money in lieu of his services. They want him to earn it because he left his contract early when he retired. That's the same with any player that retires mid-contract. So, that being said, he's about the only one that made a stink about it. You didn't hear Andrew Luck griping. You don't hear Drew Brees griping. I mean, think about it. I mean, there's been tons of players that have retired mid-contract, and it's been in the CBA since he retired. So with Johnson already started coming back to Detroit last season, he was working with Jamison Williams during his rehab. And I think that's one of the reasons why you saw that electricity when Jamison got on the field. But didn't have enough time to build that chemistry with Goff, so he wasn't able to be used as properly as he probably could have been. That being said, I think that's what you're going to see him being, is more of an advisor to the new wide receivers that come into the league for the Lions, and maybe like a rookie symposium type thing, or maybe even eventually get into coaching. But I don't think he said he doesn't even have the desire to coach. So I think it's going to be more of that type of thing where he takes the receivers, does like a rookie receiver symposium for the Lions.
Yeah, well, before I start with you, George, Will Vogel makes an excellent point. I think it would be cool for Johnson to come back to Detroit to maybe help some of these receivers to grow. So, without a doubt, Will, you're right on target there. So, George, with what Will said, why don't you go ahead and expound?
Yeah, and we've seen it with the Detroit Tigers, okay? We see Al Kaline helping out the outfielders. We see Alan Trammell being invited to Lakeland, Florida to help out with the middle infielders. So it's not unusual for teams to do this. I think back to, and I got to tell you, and Scott and I know this gentleman from way back, and his name is Tim Pendell. Tim Pendell of the Lions has had one of the best alumni groups that I know of anywhere. And, the Red Wings is another good example of their alumni association. But Tim Pendell worked with, Lem Barney and Charlie Sanders, and, cultivating that group of former Lions that want to be around, that want to give back to the community. Kelvin, you might be talking about a little different role than I envisioned, but that's okay. I mean, if they allow him to be on the field and doing some of the reps in training camp in Allen Park or off season, that's cool. I'm really cool with that. The guys that I think about helping out are like Sanders and Lem Barney and Charlie Sanders and Barry Sanders. I mean, both of them that work more on the community side of things. But either way, I think you hit it right on the spot there, Jeremy. Sheila cannot go against like you said, the CBA and the NFL agreement. And it's too bad that it happened to Calvin and he had to turn that money back in, but they do have to follow the structure of the CBA for sure on this. But all in all, I think it's a positive sign to have Calvin Johnson back with the Lions family.
Yeah, well, I mean, Barry Sanders, Calvin Johnson, always want some of your great players, especially when he goes into the Hall of Fame already at some point to return. So let's go over to Kevin Taylor. You and I remember old Kevin from our days going out to eat. George, guy from Florida Atlantic, Ben Silverman, won the Pebble Beach Pro Am Megatron Golf. Awesome. Well, what do you want from Kevin Taylor? The guy's a golf coach, so he's going to definitely make that Pebble Beach reference.
You know what he didn't mention though, and you can fire up Wisconsin early on this one. Aaron Rodgers and Ben Silverman won that amateur at Pebble Beach together. So hats off to the Packers quarterback Rodgers and Mr. Silverman.
We'll continue to go to the chat room. That way we'll move through the topics. Once again, Will Vogel, I always like when players go back to one of their former teams, helping them out like D'Amico Ryan's going. The coach of the Texans. Excellent point, Will. You're really on a roll. Keep it up. All right, well, we'll continue on. Dylan Larkin likely staying as a Red Wing. Okay, Taylor.
Well, he said he wants to stay as a Red Wing. He and the organization were in contract talks. In talks of a contract extension. He wanted $9 million per year. They were willing to offer him 8.8. Oh, I'm not 8, but $8 million per year. Now the question is, can he stay, or is it not enough for him to stay? Jeremy, I'll start with you.
What was that one? I'm sorry, I got distracted.
I'll go next, Taylor.
Sure.
We're talking about Dylan Larkin, and I'll take, and then we'll get to you, Jeremy. It's he's the captain of the team. I mean, there's a special category for those guys. there's a special situation involved here, and I think Yzerman's got to make, and the Red Wings have to make every effort to get him signed. He's a very positive influence in that clubhouse. The players look up to him. The players love working with him, I'm sure, side by side, skating with him, eating with him, dining with him. And, Dylan Larkin's a good guy. Dylan Larkin faces the media every night. Every time there's a game, he's the first guy out there to talk to the press besides coach. And they got to make every effort to keep him. And I know, like you said, Taylor, they may be $1 million apart a year, which is a lot of money. But somehow I hope that they can reach a compromise and get this guy signed, because he's an important part of the future of this team and the rebuilding effort that Stevie Y is doing here in Detroit.
All right.
Well, yeah, Dylan Larkin's a great player when he's on the ice. The key words there is on the ice. That's why there's been a separation on how much money it is. And when you're missing as much time as he has the last couple of seasons, it's a red flag for anybody that does the GM signing contracts. And that's why they're a little far apart on the money right now. But do I think they'll get the deal done? Yes, because what he could do is roll some incentives, like saying if you play X amount of games, you'll get this much extra money at the end of the season. Stuff like that. That's what they do with the injury-prone players.
Yeah, the bottom line, you got a University of Michigan player doing well in his hometown.
Such as Tyler Bertuzzi.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, well, good
Tyler
point.
is very injury prone lately. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, both of them have missed significant time over the last couple of seasons. So I get it. When your team captain is missing time, it hurts the whole team, because they are the ones that build the morale outside of the coach.
Yeah, well, and I'll tell you one thing. You got a University of Michigan guy, obviously the captain of his hometown team. He's the face of the franchise, no matter how you go out and slice it. So before I go any further here, just let everybody know that Fire Up Michigan can be heard on iHeartRadio, Apple, Spotify, Google, or wherever you get your podcast. So whether you're on the subway, whether you're on the bicycle, whether you're walking, that's how you can hear it verbally. Also, please hit the red subscribe button on YouTube, South Florida Tribune. We're striving for 1,000 subscribers. So, please subscribe and you'll get all the updates. So we have a lot of shows, sports and non-sports related. So you can find pretty much anything you're looking for here. So, yeah, Dylan Larkin to me, obviously the face of the franchise. Somehow, some way they have to get this thing worked out. All right, we'll go from the frozen pond to the hard court. Taylor, Bojan, Bogdanovic, likely staying as a Piston. What do you know?
Well, Bogdanovic, I pointed it out from a source like a month or two ago that the Pistons were trying to shop Bojan Bogdanovic, but lately it has been reported that he's likely to stay with the Pistons, and I'm not sure how good of trade bait he was. I just maybe nobody wanted him. So who wants to go first this time?
Bojan Bogdanovic is by far, since Cade Cunningham went down, our best player on the team and our most prolific scorer. And the reason why they were trying to shop him is because we're a building team, and right now the team really isn't going anywhere. And he deserves to be on a playoff caliber team the way he's playing. So I get it. They were trying to get that. There's only, 3 days, or now 2.5 days left till the trade deadline, correct?
Correct.
Thursday. So
2.5 days left. So that being said,
and I agree. Jeremy, you hit it right on. I mean, this is a building team. Troy Weaver is trying to get as much capital, I'm sure, as he can, if indeed he could trade Bogdanovic. But I agree, he's one of the few guys. Well, they got other guys too. I'm not saying he's one of the few, but he's scoring, obviously leading the team in scoring. But he is a veteran presence. He does add to that lineup as a veteran. The fans love him. He sets up for that 3-point shot, and boy, he's deadly when he's right on. And quite frankly, I would like to see him stay, because we don't have enough stability as far as the veteran presence goes on this team. But that being said, It's a similar situation to the Tigers when they put those guys out there for trade bait, and Verlander and those guys, when they were trying to rebuild. I mean, the Pistons are not the same situation as the Tigers, but they're not that far off either.
Well, so I guess my question to each and every one of you, okay, at what point or another, and I'm going to go around the horn with this, and we'll lead up to you, George, where you stop trading good players away and you keep them? Because that to me is like, really, what kind of a message are you sending to your fan base? That's what I'd like to know. George,
Yeah, Will Vogel chimes in. He says that Bogdanovic is playing well this year for the Pistons. Would love to see him on a playoff contender as a six-man or a role player. Well,
I actually think he's good enough to be a starter on any one of the teams out there.
Yeah,
True.
he can be a starter, obviously, absolutely. But I agree with you, Scott. There's something to be said about when do you stop? When do you stop the revolving doors? These teams that we got, especially in Detroit, I mean, I think the Lions aren't going to be in that category if they are anymore. But these other teams, the other three, I mean, they've got to start keeping talent here. I agree with you, Scott. And I mean, just for the sake. Now, again, unless you can make a trade that's going to be phenomenal, if Troy Weaver and Dwayne Casey can pull that off, well, that's something else to talk about.
Yeah, you need some stability. At some point, the trade stuff has to stop. I mean, it's one thing to go out there and try to trade and get a haul of draft choices, but at some point you have to build, and you need to, because I'll tell you what, we all know back from our days, Cobalt, Detroit is not an easy sell downtown, and you've got to put together a competitive product. Nobody's asking for a championship yet, but something worth more than 20 wins a year. That'll get old after a while. All right, I'll turn it over to you, Jeremy. Address the same question. What's some point you stop trading away a lot of these good players?
When you're a rebuilding team and you have a player that is semi-high dollar who's outplaying his teammates, sometimes what you want to get is enough draft capital to be able to replace him in the long run. It hurts you in the short term, but when you're sitting 29th out of 30 teams in defense and third in scoring, and you're talking about giving away your best scorer, the defense is why you're losing. Maybe get a defensive player back, because that's
More
what
like
we need.
Defensive-minded coach.
I would trade him for a defensive coach and a bag of chips if we could fire Dwayne Casey today.
Oh, that's funny. I was going to ask you about Casey. All right, Taylor, what's your rebuttal with Jeremy, if there is one?
Rebuttal? I actually don't have one. He's got facts. So yeah, you're 14-40. You're losing to the Celtics right now. Yeah, I think if you're the Pistons, I think you're going to lose to the Celtics anyway, and drop to 14-41. Yeah, Dwayne Casey's got to go. I have no rebuttal on this.
You know what, Taylor? I don't think anybody, Taylor, has a rebuttal on this one. But you know what, though? We'll go from a rebuttal to a revolving door and let you guys look at Will Vogel again. I agree. The revolving doors are annoying to keep good talent, puts people in the seats. We'll just leave it at that. All right. Two more topics.
Well, the players have a potential. Yeah, they're just being brought down by their coach. That's the truth.
Yeah. So all right. So I'm going to ask you this, Taylor. How much longer, in your eyes, do you think Dwayne Casey will be sitting behind the Pistons bench?
Apparently, until the end of this regular season. I don't know. I don't know anything about his contract details or anything. Anybody else know?
No, I'm not sure either. I mean, I know they gave him a hell of a lot of money when he came here from Toronto. But I agree with you guys. I mean, it's time to move on. I felt that way about Jeff Blashill the last year or two, and I feel the same way about Dwayne Casey. And Jeremy, you hit a raw nerve with me too. With that defense as bad as it is, who's coaching defense to these young men, these young players?
Isn't John Bally on the staff?
Yes, he is. He is.
Why the hell ain't he being the defensive coach? I mean, because that's all he taught in Michigan. Those boys, they couldn't score worth a lick the one year, but nobody else scored on them. Remember that?
I remember.
We won every game averaging 57 points.
I mean, every one of those assistants, Dwayne's got 5 or 6 guys there with him on the bench. Somebody's got to be responsible for that defense.
Will
In
Vogel,
addition,
I'd have fired him during the G League this past off season.
The All-Star break, yeah.
Yeah, there you
Anytime's
go.
a good time.
I don't
Okay,
know. Yeah, I don't know what difference it's going to make.
I
But
mean,
it
promote-
Anytime soon.
It would send a sign.
Promote
though.
Beeline now. Fire Dwayne Casey. Let him take over and see what we do through the last half of the season. I mean, it can't hurt. I mean, because really, yeah, we're 14-40, but couldn't we be at least climb into where we're looking good?
Yeah,
I mean, because
Yeah.
this is ridiculous.
Yeah, well, you know what's interesting? Yeah, why not let John Beeline take a crack at being a head coach for what's left of the year? Yeah, I hate to say you got everything to gain, nothing to lose because you're losing, but why not? So, all right, well, you know what? We'll move on to Bally Sports, which may be having a different set of problems right now. I don't care to get into it.
All I got to say is Troy Reaper. You weren't afraid to get rid of Blake Griffin. You weren't afraid to get rid of other guys that we had, Jeremy Grant and all them. Don't be afraid to get rid of the coach.
yeah.
Please, for the love of God.
Well, you know, I think I want to see Mark Jackson coaching the NBA for a lot of teams, whether the Pistons would ever get him or not. I don't know. We'll leave that out there. But sure, it's certainly worth posting. I'm not going to get a whole lot more detail because that's something I've been wishing for a while. All right, with that said, let's go back to the Bally's topic that we're talking about. Taylor, you talked about them adding Cameron Maybin, Todd Jones as Tigers analyst. Jack Morris is out.
Yeah. Yeah,
All right.
for at least 2023, from what I'm hearing from a source, Morris could be back in 2024, but Craig Monroe is going to be the full-time color commentator alongside play-by-play guy, commentator Matt Shepard. And Bally Sports, all of its regional networks, by the way, have filed for bankruptcy.
Right.
And we could see, and from my perspective, we could I could see a change of at least a name or something like that to try to produce more ratings or do whatever to draw the fans back in. So, especially including Bally Sports Detroit.
Mm-hmm.
Because they are full of announcers who are absolute shills and homers, and they're just too one-sided. They're just not professional. It's just not professional enough in the field.
It's what they want nowadays, though, Taylor. You know, you hire these guys to promote your team, to sell tickets, to create enthusiasm. Matt Shepard is a cheerleader too. You know, but Bally Sports. I mean, how many ex-Tigers do you want to have around? I mean, okay, so they got Todd Jones, and they announced Todd Jones is going to do 10 games. Okay, whoopee. Okay, is it because he's new and you want to try to break him in and he's only going to get a few? Is it is it because of his family, his travel? I don't know what it is. Cameron Maybin is only doing 20 or 30 games.
You know why he's only doing 10 games? Because Todd Jones as a closer only had 10 good saves, and the rest of them was a roller coaster ride.
Well, Jeremy, that's a good one. I got a touche.
There's never a show that you've come up with one of those Jeremyisms as Taylor continues to work for him.
I'm here for the laugh factor, boys.
Well, so there's something, Taylor, behind this Jack Morris move. If it's personal and they don't want it to get out, so be it.
It was the issue that he had when he got in that argument last year, and it was a racial slur that was said in the broad.
Technically.
That too. I mean, it was homophobic and racist. The slurs that were used by Jack Morris. He was suspended, I think, for like a month or two.
No,
and then
he made an Asian accent remark. That's xenophobia, which is different from racism and homophobia. This was about Shohei Ohtani.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Good.
He was an all-star, for God's sake.
Yeah, it was a bad
Jack
look.
Morris was showing,
and that's why he had to. I knew he was going to be gone this offseason from Bally Sports, but to bring Cameron Maybin, Todd Jones, and everybody else back, I get it. It's a Detroit network. It's Bally Sports Detroit.
Well,
So
I'll
they
say
bring
this
in the
much-
hometown guys to try and draw the fans back in because average attendance has been dwindling for ever since the last time we went to the World Series.
I'll say this much about Cameron Maybin, though. He's been working with the Yes Network with the Yankees for a while, so it's not like you're bringing a guy that doesn't know what he's talking about. And years ago, I interviewed Cameron Maybin
You
over
did, I remember.
when he got traded to the Marlins for Miggy, as we well know. So yeah, I don't know. I'll be curious to see how this all develops as well. All right, final topic of the night, one which is an updated news story, and we're going to lead off with you, Jeremy. Okay, Scottie Montgomery, the new Lions running back coach, formerly the Indianapolis Colts. What do you know about this one, Jeremy?
Well, what I did a little bit of research right away because I wanted to know who we were getting and why we got him. He's been with Indy the last 3 or 4 years, which means he's been the guy that coached Jonathan Taylor and Naheem Hines and Zach Moss after the trade with Buffalo and everybody else. And the running game has actually been really well. Quarterback play is what's cost them playoff games or playoff contention the last couple of years, or 3 years technically. Phillip Rivers, Carson Wentz, Matt Ryan. They went from meh to oh God to it got worse at quarterback. I mean, what else can you say? That being said, I'm excited to see what they do. It looks like he can come in. He also was the assistant head coach for Indy. And there was 3 other teams that wanted him that are actually good teams. And one is a new hire. Frank Reich was trying to bring him in as assistant head coach because he already brought in Deuce Staley as offensive coordinator. So he was going to make him fill the role that Deuce Staley had with Detroit, running backs coach and assistant head coach. Well, he chose Detroit over Frank Reich, Brandon Staley, and Sean Payton, and there's some pretty big names in there, and one of them was a playoff team last year.
Fair enough. All right, Taylor, any insights on this?
Well, I'm just waiting to see what Scott Montgomery can do as running back coach for the Lions. It'll be interesting to add to the Lions offense. DeAndre Swift, Jamal Williams, and other running backs that Montgomery's willing to work with, and that they're willing to work with him. That's all of it.
All right, well, let me add one thing before I bring in George. Okay, just before we went on air, Brian Flores, the new defensive coordinator for the Minnesota Vikings, good hire by the Vikings. I saw what Brian Flores did here in Miami. I'm glad that he was able to get some sort of coaching job with Mike Tomlin, and now I think there's no doubt in my mind he'll be a good asset to the Vikings as well as defensive coordinator. All right, last but not least, George Eichhorn.
Well, yeah, I mean, the proof's in the pudding. I mean, yeah, I agree with Jeremy. He did have some good success down in Indy. It's going to be tough. I mean, Deuce Staley was very well regarded by his running backs. That situation is so unique, especially in football, because of all the assistant coaches that you have now. There's such a bonding and such a relationship with their staff, between the staff and the players. And again, Deuce Staley was a good man to have there. And obviously, Coach Campbell looked up to him. So the fact that they were able to get somebody of that quality, I like that. I like that a lot. And like you said, Jeremy, other teams were hungry for him as well. So let's hope that bonding and that relationship again nurtures itself. I hope Jamel comes back. I mean, they got a contract situation there. They got to straighten out. DeAndre Swift. I mean, yeah, he made some strides, but again, you talk about somebody injury prone that really has to step up. You guys remember on Hard Knocks? You remember those comments that Deuce Staley? And,
if you'd have cut that back inside, you'd have had a touchdown.
Yeah,
remember that
he put it right back out there for him, and everybody in the whole football world saw those comments and challenging DeAndre. This being said, I hope that Montgomery works out really well for the Lions.
Yeah, the only thing I'll add to this, they need to get Jamal Adams under contract, period.
So the tight end coach and the running back coach we hired, I think it's funny that one was an assistant head coach / game planner. The other one was the offensive passing game coordinator and tight ends coach for Arizona. Now, whether he gets that role here is another story because he had Kyler Murray, and the passing game didn't look too damn good this last season.
No, and don't forget Dre Bly too. We welcome Dre Bly to the scene.
Yeah, and we got Dre Bly and
cornerbacks coach.
We talked last week about that a little bit, but welcome. It's great to have him on board.
It's great to have a former Lion player as well as one of his caliber, because remember he was off of a Super Bowl roster when he came to us, right? Didn't he play for the Rams when they went to their Super Bowl?
Can't remember.
Yeah,
well,
it was. Yeah,
I'll just say this about Dre Bly. The man wanted to come home. Wants to play Honolulu Blue and Silver. That's all you need to say. He calls. Hey, listen, Taylor. The guy calls it home. How many people can actually say they want to call Detroit home? But this guy does. So hey, you got to give him that much.
And he owned a league that my brother played for as an arena football league. So I love the guy.
Yeah, I'm sure a lot of people will. So all right, before we wrap this puppy up here, Taylor, any closing thoughts about what took place in the world of Michigan that you want to talk about that we haven't gone over?
Well, I want to go back to this Bally Sports Detroit Jack Morris thing. They offered him less work, and he denied it. That's why they parted ways. So that's why he's out. He's out for at least 2023.
Well,
we don't know about 2024. And so
Taylor,
Craig Monroe's going to take over.
Taylor, he used to do the Minnesota Twins. Wasn't there any opening for him to go back to Minnesota?
As a color commentator?
Well, yeah. He did the Twins before he did the Tigers.
Right.
Yeah, before Bob Uecker retired. He was with Bob Uecker.
I haven't got any word on that.
Right. He's from Minnesota anyways. I believe he's done color commentating for the Tigers.
I haven't heard anything. They probably are all set. Maybe they don't need him.
I think he's off for this year. Who knows, like Taylor said, what will happen in 2024. So just kind of curious. So with that said.
But yeah, I wanted to fill you guys in on what actually happened. Again, they offered him less work and he because they're bringing all that talent in, bringing Maybin Jones into the broadcast crew, and he didn't want to because he wanted more money for his son to pay for his son to go to college. That's why.
Interesting.
It's all about the money.
It may be all about the money, but you know what? If you're making some money that helps pay for that college, then no money.
Right.
And I just want our listeners to know, and our viewers, that this Bally Sports thing is not reflective of Detroit. This Bally Sports thing is all over the country. The bankruptcy proceedings, and Major League Baseball is ready to step in. I want you guys to know that. There's not going to be a lost season of no Tiger broadcast. Major League Baseball is ready, and the MLB network to step in if they have to. Now it's going to be a huge cost, and from what I hear, they don't really want to have to do it, but if they do have to do it, they will step in and rescue our local broadcast rights, such as Bally Sports in Detroit.
Yeah, I'll be curious as time goes on
to
see about the emergence of YouTube and some of these other streaming things. Well, I think I gauge that every time I get media releases from different places. So I'm glad that you brought this up, Taylor, in terms of the Bally Sports. I think there's more that we're going to find out as time goes on. With that said, just let this is Fire Up Michigan. My name is Scott Morgan, out there, host, along with George Icorn, Taylor Phillips, Smoking Jeremy B. Smoking Jeremy B goes ahead, gets a doubleheader tonight. I should point out that Fire Up Michigan can be heard on iHeartRadio, Apple, Spotify, Google, wherever you get your podcasts. Also, please hit the red subscribe button on YouTube, South Florida Tribune. We're striving for 1,000 subscribers. What I'm going to do this time is I'll get my contact information and then I'll let everybody else do theirs. So hang tight for a second, Jeremy.
I wanted to add to your little speech there.
Go ahead.
And when you subscribe, don't forget to like each show. If you're willing to comment on it, make sure you like it. And if you like it, share it with your other fans from the Michigan-based area, because that's the only way we're going to grow is if you guys are sharing it with us.
I love it when he gives me the finger, especially when he's pretty on target. Good stuff, Smoker.
And the right finger.
And then he'll go ahead and I'll talk about the Wisconsin one later.
Yeah, this finger, not the other one.
Smoking Jeremy B anyways with all this stuff. That's all right. So with that said, I'll mention a couple other things. If you're watching the show, you can find us at Tribune South. Also, www.southfloridatribune.com is the website. You can go out there and email us at southfloridatribune@gmail.com. And a special kudos to Candy Ebling, who, without her, we wouldn't be able to keep this production together. Both what she does as far as posting content up, as well as her contributions on the broadcast side. All right, well, you know what? I'm going to go left to right. So, Taylor Phillips, it's your opportunity to promote everything you do. So go out there and give me a little bit of Major League energy for the Michigan Sports Truth. Go ahead, pal.
Well, the Michigan Sports Truth podcast can be watched on Facebook Live, on Twitter at Michigan_Truth, and on YouTube at the Michigan Sports Truth podcast. Hit the red subscribe button, like every show. Just like on here on the South Florida Tribune Network, Fire Up Michigan. The Michigan Sports Truth podcast can also be listened to in audio form on Spreaker.
Very good. Well, you know what? We enjoy working with the Michigan Sports Truth on Monday nights. Taylor and Smith, one or both of you, we're always welcome to come on here. We enjoy the partnership that we're working on continuing to build. So, Taylor, I think without a doubt, you've been a very positive asset.
It's that easy, people. I just subscribed.
There you go, Taylor. You never know how many friends you're going to make. All right, Smoking Jeremy, go ahead.
All right. As you well know, I write for this guy up here, with the South Florida Tribune. You can find me under the Motor City Tribune with their list of authors. You can also find me at my podcast on YouTube, which is Kneecap Biting with Smoking Jeremy B. You can find me on Twitter at Ballrick Jeremy or at Smoking Jeremy B. I have two of them, yes. So I'm everywhere. I do my podcast, the NFL Roundtable Talks, where I cover NFL news and do the weekly pick'ems for each game on Wednesday. And then on Friday, I do all Lions news with other Lions fans. It's called the Lions Fan Cave Chat. Check me out. Give a listen. And on Sundays, I'm with this little group called the Sports Empire Network, and we do a little show called the Sunday Morning Drive. Then every Monday, I'm here with this guy doing Fire Up Michigan, Fire Up Wisconsin, Fire Up wherever the hell he wants me to be.
All right, well, with that said, we got an author on the show, and we're going to leave him for last.
Well, I would be remiss if I didn't say farewell to a good friend of ours, Mr. Dean Howe. Dean Howe of the Flint Journal and MLive.com and all the other publications he wrote for, covered the Pistons championships, columnist. He deserves a spot in the Michigan Sports Hall of Fame, Dean. Hopefully one day you're going to get in there, but God bless you and God rest your soul.
Amen.
I have a book that I wrote. It's called Detroit Sports Broadcasters on the Air, and that features the likes of Ernie Harwell, Van Patrick, Bud Lynch, Bruce Martin, Frank Beckman, Bob Reynolds, Dave Dials, and Scott Morganroth. Scott is in the book, and my dear friend I've been partners with for over 40 years, and Scott interviewed the great Muhammad Ali and the great Jimmy Connors, and we've got wonderful pictures. It's an easy-to-read book, and it's available at the Tribune website, South Florida Tribune. There's a link at the end of my columns to the book to order it from Arcadia, my publisher. I can also be heard on this show every Monday night, and I'm happy to be part of the Detroit Monitor family for a long, long time, and the Motor City Tribune family now as well. And you can reach me at gicorn@yahoo.com or on Twitter at SNGSports99. Thank you.
Just so you know, this episode is titled, Will Megatron Return to the Lions? Well, hopefully he does, makes a contribution. But what a great night with you guys tonight. George as always, Jeremy as always, and the new Taylor Phillips as always. Okay, so with that said, we appreciate you joining us here on Fire Up Michigan. So on behalf of George Icorn, Smoking Jeremy B, and Taylor Phillips, I want to thank you very much for joining us tonight. And we will catch you in about 2 weeks. I'm going to have to go out of town next Monday for some family business, but I won't disclose the details. So, meanwhile, take care, everybody. Have yourself a wonderful night. And once again, we want to thank everybody for their contributions in the chat room. Will Vogel, Kevin Taylor, and the rest goes on and on. So thanks for your participation as well. It's all good. So meanwhile, take care, everybody. And thank you very much for joining us on this edition of Fire Up Michigan.
Fire to Wayne Casey, please.
Good night, everyone.